Every year, I try to make a Halloween display bigger and scarier than the year before. Over the last few years, I've built a giant zombie pit, a towering Halloween ghoul, and creepy witch decorations that completely transformed my front yard. In this video, I'm showing you all 3 builds from start to finish so that you can create your own haunted yard this Halloween. And we're going to start off with my favorite, the zombie pit, or as my kids call it, the gates to hell. I want my zombie pit to look old and weathered and uncared for, so I want it to be kind of like a grayish black or maybe a brown. So I've got a bunch of old paints and varnishes that I can use to paint my skid, as well as I've got some neon colors that I'm going to add later on for accents so that with my black light it should glow pretty nicely. And then I've also got some reds and pinks to add in to make it look like there's some blood spatter on the skid itself. So the first thing that we needed to do is to paint the skid. I found a free skid just down the street because someone was doing some gardening and they had some pallets dropped off. I tried painting the skid with like a light gray first, but the color didn't want to absorb very nicely, so I went with a darker gray color to make the skid look like an old entranceway. I wasn't too worried about painting the skid entirely and making sure every single nook and cranny was painted because we want it to look old and weathered, so not painting the whole thing perfectly gives it a bit more of that look. I wanted my zombie pit to stand up on an angle so that you could see it from the street. So what I did was I just made a box out of old 2x4s that I had and screwed it into place on the one long end so that I could have it standing up. And I also didn't want anything coming out of the sides of the skid, so I added in some side supports that also got painted. So I did a quick touch-up paint on anything that was showing and also on the sides and backing support. I even got my husband to help with some of the heavy lifting. So once I was happy with the paint job that I did, what I was hoping to do was to put a mesh on underneath, so that's going to stop any real visibility on the inside. So I just bought a simple gray mesh from the dollar store in the Halloween section that I could just staple into place. So I was able to quickly use my staple gun and staple that mesh into place on the back side of the skid. So now that I've got the mesh in place, I just wanted to add in some red paint on top of the skid, making it look like fingerprints or hand marks being dragged into the zombie pit. So I did like 4 or 5 finger marks on the skid, as well as just splash some red paint all over the top of the skid. I did this after I put the mesh on so that the red paint would also sort of hit the mesh behind it to make it look a little bit more real. And you don't see it in the video right now, but you do later. I did also squirt some fluorescent paint on top of the skid as well to let it glow a little bit more in the black light. I've kind of got the spot that I want on my front lawn to put it down, so it's on an angle and it's kind of on a little hill, so it gives it a little bit more depth. And you can see it better from the street. So what I need to do is apply some black mesh around the outsides that aren't totally covered and underneath the skid as well, so that you can't see the grass, to let it be dark inside there. So quickly, just with my staple gun and some old tent pegs, I'm going to staple that mesh on and peg it into the ground. So once I'm happy with the location of everything, I'm just going to pull out some old body parts that I've got from the dollar store. I've previously painted these a little bit more red and neon so that they glow better in the dark. So I've placed 2 hands inside the openings of the skid to make it look like the zombies are trying to escape. And I've got a creepy face inside. I've thrown some chains over top of it, and I've actually put in some lights inside. Finally, I connected my fog machine to the back of this. I used an aluminum pipe that I've got to keep the fog machine away from the actual skid itself because the fog machine gets really hot. And then I've got the smoke comes out to make it look creepy and eerie, and then with the lights and then the black lights, I'll show you in a minute, you've got some different options of how this can look. we turned our black light on out front to shine the whole display up some more.
Let me out.
And there you have it, your zombie pit's complete. But one prop wasn't enough. Once the gates of hell opened, the rest of the yard needed something even more terrifying. So I made a giant ghoul for Halloween, and I wanted to walk you through how I did it. And this is kind of a funny project because it didn't go exactly as we planned, and it was kind of a makeshift project as we went along. We had to jimmy rig a bunch of things to make this work. So I apologize if this sounds a little bit rednecky, but this is kind of the way that it worked out. But at the end of the day, this project actually turned out pretty decent, and all the neighbors loved how it went. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go over some of the supplies. Now, as the project progressed, I added more pieces of random odds and ends, but this was the basics of what I needed. So, and keep in mind that most of the supplies that I use are kind of leftover scraps that I've got lying around the house. So for wood, I did need to have some 2x4s. I had some random pieces left over from some previous projects that I could pull together, but I needed a full 8-foot length of one of the 2x4s, so that would be the full body of the ghoul. I needed zip ties and duct tape, all, the high quality crafting supplies that we need to use. And then I had some drills and some screws to hold everything together. I did use fabric, and I used a lot of fabric for the outside and for adding it as stuffing to make this ghoul more realistic looking, as if ghouls are real, right? And then we found this super awesome mask at the dollar store that was pretty creepy, so we bought that, and that's kind of where our design sort of went from. And obviously, like any master crafter and carpentry expert, we needed to use a staple gun to hold all this together. With our screws didn't hold it. No. So what we did first is, after we had this mask designed, we decided to make out a sketch of what we were looking to have it look like, to figure out how big we wanted it and to figure out how it was going to be placed in our yard. So once we had our sketch done, we decided it was time to build a frame. And all we did was we used our 2x4 that was 8 feet tall, and we screwed in about 1.5 feet, 2 feet down from the top, a smaller 2x4 just to have the arms, and it kind of looked like a cross. And then we just screwed it in with some screws. We added these little smaller pieces onto the main body of the cross, kind of at an angle going off to the side, so that we could have the shape not be so pointy at the edge of the arms. And again, we just screwed these into place. And I'm using scrap wood, so that's why this piece here looks like it's got blood all over it. Now, the next part is kind of, I'm going to say, where we went a little bit redneck on this project. We wanted this to stay standing, but we didn't want it to tip over, and we didn't want any of the neighbor kids to like get too close and push it over. So we did a lot of jimmy rigging to get this to work. We screwed in another 2x4 piece, I don't know, about 2-3 feet off the bottom, and it was designed to be in between two of our planter pots that we had, so that it would give it some support. And then we did 2x4 on the front and on the back of the main 2x4 to hold it in place a little bit. And then we pulled out our dolly to give it some more support, and we put some blocks in the bottom at the back to hold the dolly from moving. And then we zip tied everything to Kingdom Come because it was not going to move. And so this held the ghoul frame in place. Now we moved it this way and that way to make sure it wouldn't fall over. It was actually a lot of sort of work because this guy was 8 feet tall, and it had some pretty good torque at the top when the wind was blowing. And fortunately, when we were doing this, the wind was going pretty crazy. So it was a good day to to practice with this because it was really shaking a lot. So we had to really reinforce it. After we had the shape sort of finished, it was time to start covering things up. And we didn't want the corners or the edges of the 2x4s poking through any of the fabric that's going to go on top. So on the shoulders and on the head, we actually put some fabric inside of garbage bags and taped them onto the shoulders so that it wouldn't be very sharp pointy edges, because then it looks a little bit more fake. Once we were happy with the setup of it, I pulled out some old sheets and some old fabric that we had for Halloween, and we started to cover the body of the ghoul. And our setup has black light outside, so having some white accents underneath is really helpful because it makes the ghoul glow a little bit. And so we did a bunch of different renditions and takes on wrapping the ghoul with fabric and adding more towels and more old sheets and fabric underneath it to give the ghoul more shape, because we really noticed that even though we had already done several layers of fabric underneath the edges of the 2x4s, it was still starting to poke out, and you can really see that at the top of the head. After the initial design, we noticed that the head was too low and too far in with the design and with all the fabric laying over top of it. So we just used an angle bracket on the front of the 2x4 to hold the mask in place and to push it forwards a little bit. That pushed the face of the mask out so that it wouldn't be hiding under the fabric. And like master crafters, we zip tied the mask to the 2x4 by simply putting a screw in the back of the 2x4 to hold it all into place, because we didn't want the mask flying off. So once we had the head adjusted to where we wanted it, we didn't like the way that the back of the head was looking because of the 2x4, so we actually ended up using a bowl on top to give it more of a rounded shape so that it wasn't looking so pointy. That's most of what we did with the ghoul. We had to do some additional stapling of pieces into place to hold the fabric shut, so we used just a staple gun to hold it all in place so that it wouldn't fly around and it wouldn't come off. One thing that we did extra was that this is actually a shield from a outdoor heater. We picked it up one day and it looks like a big Reese's Pieces peanut butter cup, and it's supposed to deflect the heat from like an outdoor space heater, like one of those big gas ones. And so we just picked that up, we flipped it upside down, and we used it sort of as a cauldron, and we added some black lights inside and a fog machine to help it make it look like a sort of a cauldron. And then we added some skeleton arms and some random odds and ends to make it look sort of spooky, and we put some wood around the outside of it to make it look like it was sort of foaming. And then we did have a red light in between the wood so that it would look like it was kind of on fire, and that was the project. Overall, this turned out great. It was a little bit more work than we anticipated, but the kids on the street loved it. Or I should say they were very scared of it, which was the ultimate goal of this project. The one thing that we had to do afterwards is that we did take this project apart, and we can't reuse it this year, so we have to do another project again. But that's the fun part about Halloween. Some of the things that I do want to point out though is that this ghoul, it was 8 feet tall, and it really did need a lot of support to hold it up straight so that it wouldn't fall over. And I really want to sort of stress that if you're doing something like this, you don't have a flimsy attachment to the ground. You need to make sure that it's really safe, because this guy, if he fell over, it would not be a good scene for anybody. We used a lot of smoke and black lights to make this glow at night, and it turned out great. I probably could have put some more white behind the eyes to make the eyes of the ghoul glow more, or even put in some lights inside to make it pop more and a little bit scarier, but it was fantastic anyways. And then I think in the future, if we were to do a ghoul again, I would make sure that the face is a little bit more secure and possibly higher up so that we didn't have this big bumping around the edges. But at the end of the day, it turned out great. The kids loved it, the neighbors loved it, and it was a super scary Halloween. The giant ghoul watched over the yard, but every haunted scene needs someone casting a spell behind the chaos. So I want to quickly go over the parts that we're going to need to make this witch. I'm going to be using just regular black garbage bags to cover up the witches. Now, with the height that I'm using, my witches are going to need 3 garbage bags each, just because I don't have anything that's really big and black. I have black fabric, but it's really heavy and I find that it's not working very well. So black garbage bags. Additionally, I'm going to be using this black fabricy ribbon stuff. It's got kind of some silverness in it, which is fine. It's going to look pretty cool at night, I think. And then also black mesh. This is going to go on top of the garbage bags so they don't look so fake, obviously, right? Now I'm doing 3 witches, so I've decided to do 2 black heads for the witches. So we're going to use these dollar store pumpkin heads, and then there's going to be 1 witch with an orange head. So it's going to be like black, orange, black. I only have 2 hands, so that's what we get. So this is going to be what's going to be used as the heads. On top of the head, we're going to have a hat. So that's the idea of all the pieces that we're going to use. And also there's going to be obviously duct tape, more zip ties. So I'm going to start to put this thing together. So let's start making these witches. Each of the pumpkin heads is going to go on top of the witches. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making some holes with my drill at the bottom here so that I can put them on easily. So the last thing that we want to do is I've got these LED pucks and they're remote controlled. So all you do is turn them on and you can change the colors. If I'm lucky, they'll go. And these are going into the mouth of these witches. So I'm just going to pop it into the mouth and these are going to be inside. So at nighttime, they're going to glow and I can remote control them so that they change colors or they do a fade if they want to. So we'll see what colors we like best at night. The bases that we made for the witches were a little bit larger than we had anticipated. It's only because when we started out, the first draft of these kept falling over in the wind, so we needed to make larger, more sturdy bases. So we used some leftover 4x4 and leftover 2x4s that we had, and we made some square and triangle bases to have as the frame at the bottom, and then we attached a 2x4 up the side vertically so that we could attach some conduit piping onto that. And then we had some elbows attached to provide a little bit more shape to the witches as well. Initially when we made these, we thought about adding arms onto the witches, so that's why there's additional conduit off to the sides, kind of like in an arm fashion. But when I was putting them together, I decided not to use those, so those just got hidden under all of the other stuff. So each witch is going to have a pillow for a body, and the pillow is just going to go into a bag so that it stays sort of clean or dry during the rain. And I'm just going to put it in the bag and duct tape it onto the body here so that it stays kind of centered, giving my witch a more rounder look. And I'm going to make sure that the ties are upside down so that all the water goes down and out of the bag and not into the bag.
Can you find me? I'm here. Behind you, look. Behind you. I'm behind you. I am right behind you.
Depending how tall your witch is going to be will depend on how many bags you need. I'm using garbage bags. If you have like black tarp or black paint covers, like just like a plastic sheet, you can use that instead. I'm actually going to cut my bags a little bit so that I can maximize how many I need to use, but I'm going to need about 3 or 4 for the height of this. The top bag is going to have a hole in the middle just so that the head can fit through and the shoulders will be covered up. And the other ones are going to sort of sit on top here or underneath and be duct taped into place so that they're a little bit hidden. Now I have black duct tape, so I'll be using black duct tape on the bottom bit so that it doesn't show up as much.
Don't be scared. I just want to play a game with you.
So I've cut 2 sides of my bag and now I've got a taller bag. And I just really want to be able to cover all of this inside so that it's not showing. And I'm not going to really have very much in there. There will be another sheet on top to kind of add it in or to hide this and make it a little bit bigger. But the idea is just to hide the body parts of this. I'm just going to duct tape this onto my frame and onto my pillow so that it stays in place.
Hey, don't you run away. Please stay.
I have a top bag. It's going to have a hole here in the middle. Just a little hole. So we've got a spot to pull it through, and I have to cut these red ribbons out again because my bags like to have red ribbons.
With me. If you don't come play with me.
Alright, so now I've got a bit of a body here. I'm going to tape this as well, just so that it holds shut a little bit. Now that I've got the outside done, I'm going to add some fabric around it. So I'm just going to add this on top to add some character for my witches. And finally, I've got this mesh stuff. It's gonna go on top of this as well to give it some more depth and hide some more of the garbage bag. And finally, I'm going to put my heads on. I've already got the pucks in them to keep them, to light them up later, and they're ready to go. And then I'm going to repeat that for the other two as well. Now, the bottom of the body is a bit tight to it, but as the weather proceeds, it's going to stretch out a little bit, and it's also going to look pretty cool at night. I'll get you some pictures of that in a little bit, but I'm going to just finish off the other three. So there they are finished. I'm not 100% happy with how they turned out, but it's going to be pretty good at nighttime. And then the bottom is going to be covered up with a tarp, sort of the black fabric that I've got, so that the bases are hidden and it's going to be all dark. And I'll get you some videos of this final completed look. So that's it in daylight, and then I'll show you the finished picture in a second. And there you have it. We've successfully made our 3 witches. Now this video, I don't show you the rest of the project. I've also included a witch's broom that spins around in the cauldron, and there's going to be some smoke coming out of that cauldron as well, but that's in another video. And I've left a link for that below in the description, as well as hopefully up here in the video file. And there you have it. We've successfully completed our 3 witches. I hope you've enjoyed this project as much as I have. If you have, be sure to drop a like or drop me a comment below so that I can hear from you about how it turned out for you. There was a lot of things that didn't work out very great with this project, and if you want to stick around, I'm going to talk about some of those right now. When I first started making these witches, I had envisioned using hockey sticks as the body, and that worked out fine, but I didn't have enough pegs to hold the hockey sticks in place, so they kept falling over with the wind. So I had to redo the design to be something larger. Also, when I initially envisioned this, I wanted to have the witches' faces red. And you can see here in this video, what I've done is I've got all the faces red, but the orange pumpkin, the red glows through too much and you can't actually see the face. So I've resulted in going with green for now, but I might have them alternating colors during Halloween. And these are the witches, how they looked when I had them set up with hockey sticks. They were closer to the size that I wanted or had envisioned initially, but they just wouldn't stay up with the wind, so we had to go with a different solution. And that's how these Halloween projects came together to completely transform my front yard. If you're planning your own haunted display this year, let me know which is your favorite, the zombie pit, the giant ghoul, or the witches. And if you want more Halloween projects before October, make sure you've subscribed because I've already got another terrifying build in the works.